Yeah, so my question basically is, who out there, um, first of all, is even proposing this idea of basing the classification on tortoises on their skull structure and legitimately considers that to be a good idea? And secondly, who in their right mind is accepting that as a legitimate source of classification? I mean, obviously, we do have a lot of species of tortoise that are endangered, but these animals are nowhere near hard enough to come by to run proper genetic testing that we can't get a correct phylogenetic tree put together. So we're going to kind of segue into the main point of this, which is tortoise hybridization. So when we talk about hybridization, it's mating different animals together of different groups. So this could occur all the way down to the subspecies level, which would just be like a Bengal tiger and a Siberian tiger, or even some of the different water monitors hybridizing together. And it's been recorded to happen all the way up at the order level, which was like some sea urchin and a sand dollar actually bred together. And to be a true hybrid, there are a few barriers you have to overcome, which we're going to get into in a second. So there's 7 barriers. There's 4 pre-zygotic barriers, which would be before the egg becomes fertilized, and then 3 post-zygotic barriers, which have to do with the development and birth, and then the fertility of that animal. But really, we're only going to be focusing on those first 5 because we're really just interested to see if these animals can produce an offspring. So you don't even have to think about these barriers for just hybrids. They're really for any animals that are breeding together. So the first barrier to overcome is habitat. What is separating the habitat of these two animals? Is there, a mountain range, streams, are they islands? Is one animal, living in the trees as opposed to underground? Are these animals ever going to overlap their territories? The second barrier is temporal, or, time. If these animals are in the same area, are they going to be breeding at the same time? We know a lot of reptiles go through different cycles, on a calendar basis. So the third barrier is behavior. Is this other animal going to be able to recognize the other animal as a mate? Okay, the next one is mechanical. In short, this is basically just saying that you cannot park a school bus in a one-car garage. Okay, so these are all the pre-zygotic barriers. So going into the next one, we're assuming the sperm and egg have met. And this is known as hybrid inviability, okay? This is basically saying, will that animal be able to develop into a healthy, fit adult, let alone live a life up to that point? The next one is sterility. Will that animal grow up to be sterile? Will it be able to have its own offspring? Finally, the last barrier is known as hybrid inviability. This basically says that if that animal is able to live its life up to an adult, have an offspring, will that offspring be sterile? And then if it surpasses that, it is considered a true hybrid. But like I said, we're really only concerned with basically up to that 5th barrier. We're not too concerned right now with if it'll become an adult that is able to reproduce. So the first barrier, habitat. This is probably the easiest one to overcome in captivity. We're able to put different animals in the same place. Temporal, again, we are able to artificially cycle these animals in a lot of different ways, so we'd be able to trigger them at the same time. Third, behavioral. I think Kenan says it best.
My male tortoises will jump on a rock and start thinking it's a female.
And then the fourth one is really that first major obstacle that we're not going to be able to overcome. So specifically, in that original genus of Geoclonae with those 11 species, we do see a lot of size difference, especially comparing, those giants like the Galapagos Aldabras to some of those smaller ones like the different star tortoises. They physically might have some problems breeding. Then finally, the viability of that egg. Will that egg be able to incubate and live to term? We could see issues with this if mixing, very dry, arid species with more of a tropical species. How would that egg need to be cared for? So to answer the question again about tortoise hybridization, we'll talk about some of the known tortoise hybrids. I think the most common one that's kind of sneaking right under everybody's nose is actually the Galapagos tortoise. So this represents, this is actually a species at the Galapagos level, which consists of 7 different subspecies, which have no issues interbreeding. So these are technically hybrids. Even if they do come from different islands, they're all very closely related. And again, they are technically different subspecies. On that same note, one of, I guess, the best well-known hybrids is the leopard tortoise and the sulcata tortoise, or the leopard cata. So to me, this isn't a very surprising hybridization. We're seeing these tortoises from the same part of the world with overlapping territories, sometimes even achieving similar sizes. So kind of based on the fact that they're very geographically close together, we shouldn't be overly shocked that they're able to interbreed. Not that geographic distance is an indication always of genetic relatedness, but another one that I've heard a lot of stuff about but haven't definitely seen would be the yellowfoot and the redfoot tortoise. We're looking at animals again, very overlapping territories, much more similar in physical appearance. Wouldn't be shocked to know about those hybridizing either, even in their natural habitats. Now, there are other rumors of potentially sulcata and redfoot hybridization, as well as even the leopard tortoise, redfoot tortoise hybridization. Now, these reports are few and far between, and the images provided also aren't always very convincing. Frankly, based on the images, I'm not convinced that they are true hybrids, but rather just an interesting example of a pure bloodline of one of those species. And so to answer the question of, would that Galapagos tortoise and the Aldabra tortoise be able to hybridize? We're taking away that habitat isolation. Originally these animals are from different parts of the world, as well as that temporal isolation. We could, trigger them to breed at the same time. Again, the behavioral, these animals do look pretty similar. I don't think they'd have trouble recognizing one another as a potential mate.
Male tortoises will jump on a rock and start thinking it's a female.
The same note, the mechanical barrier wouldn't be difficult to overcome either. It's really just down to the viability of that sperm and egg meeting. I would say that based on all of the evidence, it's very unlikely that these animals would be able to hybridize because of the genetic distance between them, based on how long ago they shared that common ancestor. So that's basically all I had. Feel free to drop a comment down below if you agreed or disagreed. Definitely subscribe to the channel. We're making a lot more videos like this. If anything, we're just trying to open up conversation on some interesting topics.